Hi there, my name is Mr. Pete. I am a fourth grade teacher currently reading Louis Sachar's Holes. We're about to start chapter 18. For the past week or so, we have been digging up this giant hole with everybody in Camp D and all the camp counselors looking for connections to this gold tube with KB on the bottom of it. We know that the warden, we don't know her name, but we know her name is the warden. We know that she's looking for something connected to this tube. This was interesting to her, whereas the fossil wasn't. So they're looking for something specific. Stanley seems to know that. We know that Zigzag's angry at Stanley. Is it for any other reason other than Stanley being a little goofy? Is he angry at Stanley because he knows Stanley knows they're not going to ever find anything? It's hard to say. So we'll see in the coming chapters like how this all plays out. What's going to happen with the warden, what's going to happen with this gold tube, and what's going to happen with Stanley and his relationship with these boys. Let's jump into chapter 18 without wasting any time. Go ahead and setting up on the top. There's a little bit of a shift here, only because we are perhaps done looking for more stuff with the tube. Let's find out. Chapter 18. The next morning, Mr. Sir marched the boys to another section of the lake, and each boy dug his own hole, 5 feet deep and 5 feet wide. Stanley was glad to be away from the big hole. Remember, at first he was happy about it because he was doing less work. At least now he knew just how much he had to dig for the day, and it was a relief not to have other shovels swinging past his face or the warden hanging around. He dug his shovel into the dirt, then slowly turned to dump it into a pile. He had to make his turn smooth and slow. If he jerked too quickly, he felt a throbbing pain just above his neck where Zigzag's shovel had hit him. That part of his head, between his neck and his ear, was considerably swollen. There were no mirrors in camp, but he imagined he looked like he had a hard-boiled egg sticking out of him, similarly comparing to the lump on his neck to a hard-boiled egg. The remainder of his body hardly hurt at all. His muscles had strengthened, and his hands were tough and calloused. Calluses are like rough skin on your hands, any part of your body really, where you're doing a lot of work. So when you're shoveling, you're going to have calluses like on this part of your hand, like I do. So that, and what that does is it's skin buildup. You get hard skin, and it keeps your fingers from hurting. So it sort of protects your hand. And remember that word because it is going to come into play a little bit later. He was still the slowest digger, but not all that much slower than Magnet. Less than 30 minutes after Magnet returned to camp, Stanley spat into his hole. So you can see Stanley's getting better at this. After his shower, he put his dirty clothes in his crate and got out his box of stationery. He stayed in the tent to write the letter so Squid and the other boys wouldn't make fun of him for writing to his mother. So we've gone from the hole back to the tent. Dear Mom and Dad, camp is hard but challenging. We've been running obstacle courses and have to swim long distances on the lake. Tomorrow we learn. He stopped writing as Zero walked into the tent, then returned to his letter. He didn't care what Zero thought. Zero was nobody. Is this our Stanley? Stanley's a level 5 kid. Like, he's a kid who seems to have empathy for everybody. Why does he saying this about Zero? To rock climb. I know that sounds scary, but don't worry. Zero was standing beside him now, watching him write. Stanley turned and felt his neck throb. Throb is like pulsating. It's like kind of a blinking pain. It hurts and then it doesn't, and then it hurts and then it doesn't. I don't like it when you read over my shoulder, okay? Zero said nothing. I'll be careful. It's not all fun and games here, but I think I'm getting a lot out of it. It builds character. The other boys, I don't know how, said Zero. What? Can you teach me? Stanley didn't know what he was talking about. Teach you what? To rock climb? So he thinks he's reading the note over his shoulder. Zero stared at him with penetrating eyes. Penetrating eyes is when you are almost trying to look through somebody. You're just staring at them with intent. What? Said Stanley. He was hot, tired, and sore. I want to learn to read and write, said Zero. Stanley let out a short laugh. He wasn't laughing at Zero. He was just surprised. All this time, he had thought Zero was reading over his shoulder. Sorry, he said. I don't know how to teach. After digging all day, he didn't have the strength to try to teach Zero to read and write. He needed to save his energy for the people who counted. What's happening to Stanley? You don't have to teach me to write, said Zero. Just to read. I don't have anybody to write to. Sorry, Stanley said again. His muscles and hands weren't the only parts of his body that had toughened over the past several weeks. His heart had hardened as well. He finished his letter. He barely had enough moisture in his mouth to seal and stamp the envelope. It seemed that no matter how much water he drank, he was always thirsty. So I do want to talk to you about how he's treating Zero here and how over time being at this camp has changed Stanley. So he's getting more fit. He's getting more healthy physically. But the more he's there, the more calloused he's getting, not only in his hands, but also with his heart. His heart is getting callous, so he's caring less and less about others, almost so he can get by day to day. And that's unfortunate. Stanley was a very empathetic person, and we'll see if that changes throughout this story. Very sad to see. All right, so Zero, on the other hand, doesn't know how to read, and he wants Stanley to help him read. Okay? So he asks him, and Stanley says no. Thank you so much for joining me. Please hit that like button. Please hit subscribe. And most importantly, please leave comments, especially students and teachers out there. Leave comments below. Let's spur on some conversation with this amazing book as we read it with our classes, or you just read it for fun. All right? Thank you so much, and I will see you on the next page. Peace.